Hi, Sue.
Hi, Craig.
Hey, thanks everyone for joining us on today's Coach Snippet. And we've got Susan Warren with us. Susan is an executive coach with My Career Brand, and her specialist areas are around career transformation and executive coaching. Look, today Sue's going to be sharing with us some of the areas that we cover off in career transformation. So, Sue, maybe you could just give us a little bit of an idea on what career transformation is.
Sure. I think, actually we're always dealing with change, but perhaps what's happened in the last few months is that we've had a lot more time for self-reflection. And we've also, a lot of us, had to deal with changing circumstances. So perhaps one of the things through self-reflection is that we've changed priorities in our lives, or we've asked ourselves, what's really important to me about my work, and how does that relate to my work and my lifestyle? Or in fact, we've had change foisted upon us. We've been made redundant, we've been shifted in our position. So for all of these reasons, it seems that given we're specialists in supporting people to come through in their job search and acquisition, then to actually step back at the very beginning of that process and say, what's changing for me? How can I deal with that change? And it would be really helpful to have some tools and some processes to explore this.
Yeah, so I guess what I've heard a lot of people talking about is this pivoting thing, and is that sort of if people are sort of heard about that as the career transformation piece, or is it enabling people to pivot through transformation in that area?
Well, that's a really good point. I think pivoting has become a bit of an in word, and in fact it's both. So it's both perhaps looking at it, pivoting yourself, and it's surprising how many people don't think about what are their transferable skills, and how therefore when they find themselves in a new circumstance that they can, as we say, pivot into that new place, and then pivot with self-assurance and confidence, and that they are absolutely authentic people. So I think pivoting might be a bit of an in word, but there's a lot of truth, and the metaphor comes up in my mind of somebody being able to turn around, and perhaps that's what career transformation is about. It's about turning around and looking at our career with fresh eyes, with energy and enthusiasm, and making sure that we're in exactly the job we want to be in.
Yeah, because I guess today, if we were to look at what's happening around us, it can actually be quite a positive thing, because it can be, if you like, the catalyst for change within ourselves and those around us to actually consciously think about what we could be doing with our career, so that we're doing what we love doing and what we really do well.
That's right. I mean, in the beginning, if change is foisted upon us when we weren't expecting it, it can make us feel very fragile and vulnerable, and wonder what to do with it. And I say often when I'm talking with clients, look, this is going to be uncomfortable, but believe me, going into this discomfort, you will come out the other side. And I'd use the metaphor of the weather, the boat. One day there's a squall, the other day the sea's calm, one day the sun's shining, the other day we've got a real storm. So it's about learning to navigate through those changing circumstances and coming to a place where we're the masters of our own destiny and of where we want to be in our careers.
Yeah, it's something that I've reinforced a lot throughout the years, is actually taking control of your careers rather than letting somebody else control you throughout your career.
Exactly, and that often demands courage to really believe in yourself, identify and know what your skills are, and when you're in a leadership role particularly, to really start learning those skills of coming back, I call it to our own locus of control, so that we're taking responsibility for ourselves rather than being buffered around with everything that's always contextually, things are going to be changing and going on. And the question is, how do we come back to a place of confidence where we are in charge of our universe?
Yeah, and I guess that sort of ties nicely into the second bullet point here, where we're talking about how career transformation and that enablement piece matches or maps into the job search and acquisition.
Well, it's a wonderful thing to have been able to offer this this part of that career search and acquisition, because it's almost giving people permission to say, you know, before I actually set myself up, look for my value proposition, my narrative, apply for that job, I can take out some time out and really consider what's my personal purpose, what's my brand, how can I go forth and apply for the sorts of jobs that make me feel really energized and motivated. And then when I'm with a recruiter and I'm writing my CV or doing my LinkedIn profile, that is absolutely authentic and therefore very convincing and will work every time for us.
Mm-hmm. And I know Kyla and some of our other vlogs and podcasts around Coach Snippets has talked about authenticity, and I guess a lot of that authenticity comes from actually believing, you know, in why you're sitting in that chair being interviewed, and that you really can see yourself in that role, and that comes from being really sure about, you know, your future direction in terms of the job search and acquisition.
Absolutely, and you know, in the course of our work lifetime, as we know, we can, except perhaps if we're a doctor or a dentist, we might change our career pathway a number of times. And the question is, when we have a track record that's positioning us in one pathway, how can we then move it to the right or to the left, and be sure that the recruiter or the person looking at our skill sets can really hear us saying, this is my track record, and this is where I want to be. And by the way, you know, I have all of the skills to be able to be the perfect person in this role.
And I guess getting that piece right at the beginning enables you to develop your collateral, such as you mentioned before, LinkedIn and so on, but also your interview skills, so what you're going to focus on, but your CV as well, so that your CV is positioned in a way that is going to, you know, map forward rather than just look back, so you're more likely to end up in a role that you genuinely want to be in, because you've got that or those pieces of marketing collateral that you're able to distribute or take with you.
That's right, and that whole idea of being where you absolutely want to be and knowing what that is means you're going to always be a much more powerful person. And right now, given that we're navigating very uncertain times, then to be able to feel comfortable with opening up to that and to be open to that change means that we're going to be very valuable people in leadership roles. And so the more we can know about ourselves and know where, to use that word again, we're pivoting, the better it will be both for ourselves and for our teams and for the jobs that we go into.
Yeah, and I've heard it many times before, Sue, where recruiters or hiring managers have given feedback they just didn't want it badly enough, or I got the feeling that they didn't really want the role. And I think in today's market, where we're seeing a lot of competition out there in the market amongst candidates, the candidate that is going to be able to present with to your point, you know, a lot more powerfully and with a lot more authenticity is more likely to be able to get their message across the line for that hiring manager that may be looking out for candidates that are just applying for a job because they need a job.
Yeah, that's right. And that word authenticity, you could say from one point of view it's an overused word, but on the other hand, when we're talking about what is our identity, it's that part of it's us, and on the deepest level. And if really we're not so clear on who we are and what we stand for, then actually we don't come across as authentic as we could be. And that becomes very important in the job search and acquisition tracking.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. And so to move this forward, Sue, in terms of how we approach this with our clients at My Career Brand, what are the coaching disciplines that you apply for the career transformation program?
Well, that's a really good question. I can only speak for myself, and I'm a fully qualified NLP, which stands for Neuro Linguistic Programming coach. I'm also a trained simply as a coach, and in fact do some of those weird and wonderful things like hypnotherapy. But the other thing is I'm not 20. I've seen a lot of life, and so I think that I bring all of those disciplines. Plus, I've been through a lot of change in my own life, so I bring all of those experiences to the table to be able to have that dialogue with working with my clients. We all have things that we want that we don't have, and we have things that we in fact don't want. So sometimes we're blocked, we're stuck, and so working with a coach is a really great way to be able to have those dialogues and work with a coach who is trained with skills and disciplines to help us to see those areas that we're grappling with, who can give us some tools to work with and then move us through along in our search. And the whole idea of our coaching is to do this to empower people, so that what I love is when a client, we finish our session and they say, thank you, that's really changed the way that I'm thinking about things.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I guess I want to emphasize here is that, throughout the My Career Brand programs, whichever program that is, that there is a process, and we do have disciplines, because most of the people that we see will actually want some structure, but at the same time we're able to flex around that. And as you say, you've got an enormous amount of training in there, but on top of that, you've got your other life skill or life experiences that you're able to bring to the table. And I guess all of that combined, makes up the amalgam, if you like, of disciplines and experience that's really important in this sort of coaching. For whether you call it pivoting or career transformation, whatever you call it, it's really important that we recognize the fact that people are wanting to actually do some work and make that count around where they need to be next.
Absolutely, and I think that adage, freedom through discipline, I think it's very important that coaches actually have that foundation of the disciplines and having studied different ways of coaching and working with people. And invariably we're all people, so we find that some things are much more our areas of strength than others, and then we can utilize those. So for example, when I'm working with my clients, I love language, and it happens that I have a background in branding and marketing. So being able to bring that to the table and work with people on their personal brand, their personal purpose, and then look at what their narratives are and how to use those to look at the jobs and to be able to achieve the jobs that they really want, then that's a great asset, hopefully, that I share with my clients.
Yeah, I think we've covered off a few points here and how you might assess whether you want to undertake this program or whether you need to do some work in this area yourself somehow, somewhere. we've put a list down here, I think, of the questions that people could probably ask themselves before they give you a call or have a conversation about this.
I think that's really important. I always say to people, really happy to have a chat. And in fact, we put some questions up that people can start to think about. And before I begin working with clients in career transformation, I ask them to answer a series of questions, which are actually based on a very tried and tested coaching model, which is called the GROW questionnaire. And most people come back and say that they did find it quite challenging and confronting, but they were so pleased that they did that. And it means that when we begin our sessions, we really hit the ground running. The coaching's actually begun as the person's begun asking those questions.
Yeah, so I think some of the points we've got here is confidence and presence. So how would you rate yourself for that? And how do you go about mastering your emotions, in the workplace, but maybe even outside the workplace? And I guess more importantly, and Sue, you and I have had a number of conversations about this, is the self-limiting beliefs. So what is actually preventing you from making the steps that you need to make, or even achieving what you really want to achieve? And then finding the motivation to actually get out there and do it. So what are the things that you need to do, and remaining calm and present in that process. And I know when we're working with search consultants and so on, they often talk about the presence, the person, how they come across, that calmness and so on in a leadership role. And then articulating your narrative. So having that narrative in place, how are you able to communicate that? Are you communicating it with confidence? Is it understandable, and is it relatable?
I think you've just summed up the career transformation program and its content. And those are exactly all the sorts of areas that we canvass in it. And then depending on what a person's particular requirements and needs are, or in fact they might discover things that they didn't know about themselves on that journey, then we really can focus in on there, so that by the time they've finished the career transformation modules, they are really well set up and confident to then start going seamlessly into the next phase of what at my career brand we're offering, which is then career acquisition.
So the job search strategy piece and so on nicely dovetails into that.
Yeah.
Hey Sue, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been really informative, and I know that anybody out there who's thinking about pivoting, if you like, or transforming their careers, given the current situation we're in, and actually probably more likely to be in going forward for a while yet, that they can give you a call on 021 506 030 and get in touch.
Thanks, Craig, and thanks so much for giving me the opportunity to talk about this program, because I have to say that I am really passionate about it. And as I watch people come through, it's incredibly satisfying for each of us to see the difference from the day that we start on that program, and then after going through these modules and on into the rest of the program. So great.
Okay, thanks very much, Sue.